Mm. Sorry. All right.
There we go. It's been 1 year and we're still having some technical difficulties, but that's all right. So welcome to our 1 year anniversary episode of Sounds Reasonable. I am your host. Yeah, Tracy's got some balloons for us. I am your host, Dr. Brad, and I am joined the production of our weekly show by honest, we have not. Yeah, it's our 1 year anniversary, but we have not been
No, we
drinking.
have not. We're just high on life. Glad to be alive.
by Tim, Tracy, and Abby. And Abby will be joining us soon.
Hopefully.
We're all members of the Free Thought community, and our Sounds Reasonable website can be found on Facebook. Do you experience frequent irrational thoughts, a pervasive belief in a divine sky daddy, an insatiable urge to read horoscopes, perform spells, speak in tongues, or pray? Fortunately, you are now listening to the cure for these ailments. Sounds Reasonable. This show is dedicated to bringing you, the listener, the latest news in free thought, science, logic and reason, and politics and religion. And of course, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us after every episode by posting comments and asking questions on our Facebook page. What is free thought? What does it mean to be a free thinker? The dictionary definition is a person who forms opinions about religion based on reason, independent of tradition, authority, or established belief. Here's Christopher Hitchens' working definition. Our belief is not a belief. Our principles are not a faith. We do not rely solely upon science and reason because these are necessary rather than sufficient factors, but we distrust anything that contradicts science or outrages reason. We may differ on many things, but what we respect is free inquiry, open-mindedness, and the pursuit of ideas for their own sake. We will now move on to story 2 tonight because Abby has story 1, and again, we hope she'll be joining us here shortly. Now, the rise of the religious right can be traced primarily back to the Reagan presidency and two main evangelical players, Ralph Reed and Jerry Falwell. Falwell is gone and his son is as corrupt as they come, and we have done a couple of stories on Jerry Falwell Jr. Ralph Reed, while still kicking, is nowhere near the player he used to be in politics. So just what is responsible for this decline in evangelical support for the Republican Party? The story I'm going to relay today is from NPR and is titled, "How is the GOP Adjusting to a Less Religious America?" It was authored by Danielle Kurzelbin and published on June 4th of this year. When Ronald Reagan accepted the 1980 Republican presidential nomination, he ended his speech with a pious request. And there's Abby. Welcome, Abby. I'll confess that I've been a little afraid to suggest what I'm going to suggest. I'm more afraid not to. That we begin our crusade joined together in a moment of silent prayer, he said. It was the preface to a presidency that would help make white evangelicals the staunchly Republican voting bloc they are today. Fast forward to a 2015 campaign event when Republican consultant Frank Luntz worked to pin down soon-to-be President Donald Trump on a simple question of faith. Have you ever asked God for forgiveness? Luntz asked Trump twice before getting this answer. I'm not sure I have. I, I just go and try and do a better job from there. I don't think so. I guess Luntz forgot that Trump thinks he is God.
There you go.
Uh,
I asked myself.
Trump benefited from the white evangelical support that Reagan helped solidify, but he also presided over a country that religiously looks far different from the one Reagan took over after 1980. Trump's presidency is one early case study in how the Republican Party, which has long associated itself with conservative Christian values, may attempt to deal with a country that's less and less religious. In fact, the U.S. recently passed a religious milestone. For the first time, a majority of Americans are not church members. The Gallup found this spring. Over the last decade, the share of Republicans who are church members fell from 75% to 65%, according to Gallup. That's obviously still a solid majority, but also a sizable fall. The key block of white evangelicals is also shrinking as a share of the population, while the share of religiously unaffiliated Americans continues to grow. This makes religion one key part of a looming long-term demographic challenge for Republicans, says Whit Ayers, a Republican pollster. Republicans clearly have a stronger hold among the religiously affiliated, especially evangelical Protestants. And consequently, any decline in evangelical Protestant affiliation is not good news for the GOP, he said. The upshot to Ayers is that a party still deeply entwined with conservative Christianity, in particular white evangelicals, will eventually have to win over more Christian conservatives, for example, the growing Hispanic electorate, or make gains among substantially less religious groups like young voters. And that aspect of the Hispanic electorate, is something that we saw that unfortunately they were able to tap into this past
more
election.
So than you would think.
Yeah, more so exactly than you would think. Now a change in tone is the next subsection. So for now, it's fair to say that in the Republican Party, overtly religious rhetoric is being replaced by broader culture war issues, Ayers said. While religiosity may be declining, people attracted to culturally conservative causes may not be. So cancel culture, TV shows, and movies that exalt more left-wing values that cast aspersions on right-wing values, he said. That dovetails with another trend in American politics, of people increasingly centering their identities on partisan affiliations. It's a trend that can give pastors headaches that have nothing to do with whether church attendance is rising or falling. Now, Christian Gaffney, pastor at Expectation Church in Fairfax, Virginia, says congregation members have pushed back when he has preached about things like masks as well as race. Gaffney said that conflict arises for him when congregants center their lives on their partisan identities rather than their Christian beliefs. I think it goes back to the idea of culture wars, the idea that everything is so polarized, and because there's this trajectory of polarization, Trump kind of gives a lightning rod for one of those poles, one of those sides to really rally around and adhere to, he said. My job as a pastor is to show people it's not about rallying around either side. It's about rallying around the person Jesus Christ. Though he considers himself conservative, Gaffney said that right-leaning congregation members have accused him of being liberal when he has questioned Republic orthodoxy. So this last subsection is entitled Christianity versus Christian Culture. So Gaffney's church has been growing, but on the whole, the shrinking American Christian church may counterintuitively tighten the bond between the Republican Party and conservative Christianity. These kinds of data about the shrinking share of the population of white evangelicals or declines in church membership actually intensify the relationship between the GOP and conservative Christians, said Sarah Posner, author of 2 books critical of white evangelicals' politics. As those numbers shrink, the demography is not in the GOP's favor. And so intensifying their relationship becomes ever more important in terms of winning elections and so forth. Those statements like saying he had never asked for forgiveness, as well as infamously referring to the biblical book typically called 2 Corinthians as 2 Corinthians, like 2 Corinthians go into a bar. Trump showed that he didn't have the church-going bona fides of rivals like Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican of Texas, who invoked God regularly at his campaign events. So anyway, that pretty much summarizes or sums up the article. So what do you think? Is the Republican Party in trouble from the shrinkage of their evangelical base, or are they going to be able to tap into some of these other avenues?
I'm just still shocked that even the Latin population, the numbers that were still on board with Trump after all the crap he says about it.
Yeah.
How it just blows my mind. How could you vote for someone that despises you and denigrates you and demeans you?
Thanks, Cheryl.
Just because supposedly the Republican Party is a religious party, I guess. Right?
Go ahead, Abby.
Well, I've heard from people kind of.
We can't hear you, Abby.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
You're not muted, but.
Can you hear me okay?
No sound.
I hear you just fine.
Still can't hear you.
Oh, I know why.
Oh.
The bird. Shut up the bird.
There we go.
It was my fault.
It was our fault. Yep, on this side. Go ahead, Abby.
Well, I was just going to say with some of the people I've talked to that are Trump supporters, even though he doesn't seem to fit any of their values, is because he supposedly upholds their conservative values. So even though he himself is not, they voted for him because he is still a proponent of those conservative values. So they make a lot of excuses. Stop. I have a child crying at me right now, but they make a lot of excuses for why they would still vote for him because of he's going to vote for what they want.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, the party voting for the party, not necessarily him, but because he has an R behind his name.
Yeah.
Which is still voting against their best interest.
Exactly, but I think I don't think they realize that. They see some key issues, pro-life or something like that, and they just stick to that one idea, and they don't really listen to or think about the other things that are being affected. So I think a lot of it is just that people are not maybe informed. I'll use the word informed well enough, and there is a lot of false information going around. So I think they also have a hard time understanding what is true and what is not true. And so they're voting because of things that one issue maybe.
Right. And they choose to overlook all the other crap.
Yeah, exactly. I have a quick question. So the Biden administration now, they've been pretty conservative, more conservative than I think a lot of Democrats would like. What are you guys thinking about the conservative versus liberal? How do you guys think that plays into, just beyond religion in general?
Well, right now, obviously the two people we're worried about are Manchin and the gal from Arizona. Oh shoot, I can't think of her name right now. I can Cinema. Yeah. So Manchin and Cinema. Those are the two people that we have to be concerned about, because without them, we do not have a majority in the Senate. Right. We don't have a majority vote, and it is so obvious to me, and I don't know how it isn't to all the Democratic senators, that there is nothing that is going to get passed by a super majority. Right. There is not going to be 60 votes for on what I don't think you get 60 votes agreeing that Saturday is Saturday. The filibuster is going to have to be eliminated to pass any of these things, and they've got to decide. Do they want to preserve our democracy, or are they going to let it go down the tubes? Because these state laws that are going into play are designed to, eliminate fairness in elections. They just simply are.
And to your point, Abby, is if you look at what Biden is now looking like he's willing to do to get the infrastructure passed, I mean, he is kowtowing, yes, to not to the Republican Party, but again, more so to our two ultra conservative Democrats,
right,
to get something passed. And so he's going to get that. It's looking like they're going to get that infrastructure bill just to try to get it the super majority,
which is ridiculous.
Which is, yeah.
Especially
after the whiny bitch Mitch is still saying he's going to do everything he can to fight anything that Biden wants to get done.
You're mute. Oh, there you go.
Sorry. Yeah, I do. I mean, I agree. There has to be some compromise there. And I'm okay with that. I am. I understand that not everybody is as liberal as I am either. So, I try to have as much respect for other viewpoints as possible. But as far as, your statements about religion and the evangelicals kind of being the base of the Republican Party, I still do think that there is a lot of people who have those religious values, and I'm not sure if we're at a point that it's going to tip just based on that. I know that there are a lot of younger people that are not as religious as the previous generations, but those people don't vote as often yet. And so let's hope, I still have some hope that they will, but I think right now I'm not seeing, I don't think there's going to be a big change in religious sects basically controlling part of the government.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's been, in my opinion, three times in history, in our political history, that have led us to where we're at today. Assassination of John F. Kennedy, definitely the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, because he probably would have gotten elected. Reagan becoming president.
Right. Yeah.
That is the trickle-down economics, the religious part of it, and you can probably now maybe throw in Trump here. We'll see how the future holds, being elected.
Yeah.
Defining moments that have led us to where we're at today.
All right. So I think we'll wrap it up at that point, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
me alive, but got no alibi. It's a lover's fight without an alibi. You took my hands without an alibi. Smoking hot.
Yeah, I gotta do that.
Yeah, there we go.
And we're back.
And we're back with more Sounds Reasonable on Sunday, June 6th, 2021. We'll now move on to our science news segment. And remember that the scientific mind is one that is one that allows its perceptions of reality to be constrained by good evidence and good argument. The human genome contains approximately 3 billion base pairs of genetic code. Some 21 years ago, most of the genome was completed, and some astonishing facts were gleaned from this effort. One was that the genome had far less genes than the proteins that are known to exist, but this is easily explained by the way in which RNA can be processed. Second, the human genome is composed of about 50% retrovirus sequences. And third, a close examination of chromosome 2 explains our human origins from an ape-like ancestor. However, even with these accomplishments, not having the entire sequence was troublesome. Now researchers have completed the sequencing. Abby has the story, so Abby, fill in the missing pieces.
Yeah, so we actually did talk about the Human Genome Project a little bit on our DNA Day episode. So it's kind of a continuation. And it was pretty much thought that at that point in time, the entire genome was sequenced, but it was still missing. I mean, the majority of it was, a lot of it was then better understood, but there was still some missing. And the story that I'm relaying is from Popular Mechanics and titled, Scientists Say They've Finally Sequenced the Entire Human Genome. Yes, all of it. And this is by Caroline Delbert. It was published June 3rd, 2021. So 21 years ago, researchers announced the first draft of sequencing the complete human genome. It was a monumental achievement, but the sequence was still missing about 8% of the genome. Now, scientists working together around the world say they finally filled the reclusive 8%. If their work holds up to peer review, and it turns out that they really did sequence and assemble the human genome in its entirety, gaps and all, it could have changed the future of medicine. So the story goes on to talk a little bit about what the human genome is. And so I'll kind of summarize this, that obviously this was a huge project that they had been working on for many years before it was actually sequenced. And of course, technology has greatly improved now that sequencing is a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and a lot more available. So obviously you can get most of your genes sequenced anyway, through some companies like 23andMe or Ancestry.com and things like that. So it's available to the general public for the most part, but of course not all of it. They don't sequence your entire genome, and they don't know what all of it means yet either. We're still figuring some things out there. But basically humans do have 46 chromosomes. There are 23 pairs. It represents tens of thousands of individual genes. Each gene consists of base pairs made up of the A, T, C's, and G's that we all learned in basic biology class. And there are billions of base pairs in the human genome. In June 2000, the Human Genome Project and private company Celera Genomics announced the first draft of the human genome. Of course, we're looking at 30,000 to 35,000 genes, or about 3 billion individual bases or base pairs. That's what they were originally thinking, and now we know that it's not as many. It's actually lower, about 20,000 genes. About 3 years after the Human Genome Project did their first draft, is what they're calling it, we looked at what each one or each gene was really telling us. And so this finished sequence, this is a quote, is a technical term, meaning that the sequence is highly accurate with fewer than one error per 10,000 letters, and highly contiguous with the only remaining gaps corresponding to regions whose sequence cannot be reliably resolved with current technology. And so again, current technology is doing most of what we're looking at here. The sequencing machines that have been developed in the last 20 years are able to read the sequences, those base pairs, A's, T's, C's, and G's, and put them in, basically tell us for the most part, the correct order. The Human Genome Project used a process called bacterial artificial chromosome, or BAC, where scientists used a bacterium to clone each piece of the genome and then study them in smaller groups. So the complete BAC library is 20,000 prepared bacteria with cloned genes inside. The BAC process inherently misses some portions of the whole genome, and the reason why it is a great lead in to this new team scientists has helped to accomplish. So what's happening here is that there was about 8% of the genome that the first draft in 2000 of the human genome was not sequenced at all. And they're made up of many, many repeated patterns that just made it too difficult for the BAC method, so the BAC cloning method. The BAC and other approaches just weren't right for the repeats heavy remaining 8% of the genome. The current workhorse DNA sequencer made by Illumina take little fragments of DNA, decode them, and reassemble the resulting puzzle. Stats Matthew Hepner reported. This works fine for most of the genome, but not the areas where DNA code is a result of long repeating patterns. That makes intuitive sense. Imagine counting from 1 to 50 versus simply counting 1, 2, 1, 2 over and over again. Part of what makes the BAC method successful is scientists took care to minimize and match up the overlaps, which became almost impossible in the repeats heavy unexplored portion of the genome. So now they're looking at some new approaches. California-based Pacific Biosciences, which is PacBio, and the UK-based Oxford Nanopore have some different technologies. PacBio uses a system called Hi-Fi, where base pairs are circulated literally as circles until they're read in full and in high fidelity, hence the name. The system dates back just a few years and represents a big step forward in both length and accuracy of those longer sequences. And then Oxford Nanopore, they're using electrical current in its proprietary devices. Strands of base pairs are pressed through a microscopic nanopore, just one molecule at a time, where a current zaps them in order to observe what kind of molecule they are. By zapping each molecule, scientists can identify the full strand. In the new method published in the biology preprint server bioRxiv, an international consortium of about 100 scientists using both PacBio and Oxford Nanopore technologies to chase down some of the remaining unknown sections of the human genome. This consortium said that it increased the number of DNA bases from 2.92 billion to about 3.05 billion, a 4.5% increase, but the counts of genes increased by just 0.4%. So again, a lot of these repeating segments really aren't, as far as we know, coding for any proteins or any product at the end. So overall, it looks like we're getting to the point that we're trying to figure out what these pieces mean, and I don't know if they mean anything. I mean, honestly, we're not really sure if these long repeating segments really do what they do for us, what the purpose of them are. And just to summarize kind of the very end of the article, it says that the next step is to study, for the study is to do peer review. So obviously this is pre-published information, so still needs to go through the peer review process. But both of the PacBio and Oxford are trying to sequence the entire 46 chromosome human genome. But again, we might not have even that all of that 8% done. You know, might take years for us to really be able to decode those long repeating segments. And then even more importantly, to try to understand what the purpose of those are. So yeah, that's my story. New technology, increasing our knowledge. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so getting the complete sequence is important. We need to fully understand exactly how the human genome is constructed. Precisely what it consists of. In order to make our knowledge complete about that. But to me, still the surprising thing is just how few genes there are, and we've expanded. Let's see, so that'd be about 240 million more bases we've added with that 8%, and we expanded the number of genes by 0.4%. So it's obvious that there weren't a bunch of hidden genes in there, and that's frankly the reason I make a point of that is that's part of the creationist argument that you don't know that that's really the number of genes because you don't have the whole sequence. And of course their argument is junk DNA versus shall we say express DNA. They hate the term junk DNA, because their creator, of course, would not have put junk in there.
No, everything has a purpose.
Right, everything has a purpose, and so there wouldn't be junk in there.
No, even the retroviral DNA.
Right, yes, even the retrovirus DNA that's there.
It's all part of God's plan.
Right, clearly, I don't see it.
How could you refute that?
Yeah, I don't know, but. But anyway, yeah, that it was very important to accomplish that, and man, you think of the amount of effort it's taken to get there, and the technology now, as you point out, to accomplish it is just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that just how much technology has changed in the past, even 20 years. It's incredible the amount of information that we could obtain. And now, and I said this before, but I really do think that we need to look at it now. We have so much data and we have the ability to access so much data, but the important thing as a scientist is to start understanding what does it all mean? What is it for? What does it do? What is and sometimes there's no answer, and that's fine. And like your statement about junk DNA, I don't have a problem with junk DNA, but we don't know yet exactly if it's all junk, or there might be some epigenetic type things that maybe it doesn't code for a protein, but it serves some other type of function. Or protection, like if you think about our telomeres, some type of protection component. So I think those are really interesting questions that we need to keep asking ourselves is, we have all this, we have the sequence, or maybe, and maybe in a couple of years, we'll have the entire sequence, but what do we do with that? What questions can we ask? What things can we discover about ourselves using it?
Yeah, I mean, not just because it's non-coding doesn't
Right.
mean it has no function.
Right, right.
So if it doesn't, just because it doesn't specify a protein or a transfer RNA or a ribosomal RNA or what have you, it still can clearly have function. Like one of the more interesting aspects. This was a paper that came out probably 10 years ago or so now, maybe even longer than that. But anyway, they showed that at least 95% of the sequence of our DNA sequences are transcribed. Yeah, so there's a lot of RNA floating around that may or may not have any function, and so the focus on RNA has been justified, because of that. You want to know what those RNAs are doing.
Well, yeah, it's really, really interesting. Like RNAi was something that, kind of sparked everybody's interest in RNA in general, because we started realizing that RNA by itself can have different functions. And it doesn't just have to be a protein, where I think before we really thought that proteins were all the functional components made from DNA, but it looks like RNA really can have a lot of functions within the cell. And so that's really exciting thinking, how much that opens up, like just the diversity of life and what controls all the functions within a living organism, that RNA could play a much larger role than we anticipated.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, definitely so. All right, Abby. Well, thank you so very much for that story, and we'll be right back with more Sounds Reasonable.
Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
And we're back with our politics segment. Now, the Republican Party continues to push the big lie that the election was stolen. Nowhere has this been more apparent than in Maricopa County, Arizona, where a ballot audit is taking place by cyber ninjas. I wish they'd dress up, like the turtle ninjas.
There you go.
That they look like they're actually doing something.
We all know ninjas dress in black,
Oh yeah.
like Antifa ninjas.
Antifa ninjas, yes.
Come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Can't find your remote.
Yeah. They
I still don't 100% understand why Antifa is a derogatory term. Like, don't we not like fascists?
I know.
Like,
I could never understand that either.
I agree, Abby.
okay. I thought maybe I was like not understanding something. It's like, are we liking fascists now? What changed? I don't know. Okay.
No, but it's all Antifa's fault, no matter what. Thanks, Antifa.
Yeah.
That's what's the new thing. It's not Obama anymore. It's thanks, Antifa.
So Tim has the story. So Tim, what is the problem with the election process in Arizona?
Well, thanks for the introduction, Dr. Brad. And to answer your question, in my opinion, the problem with the Arizona elections is the same problem we're seeing with the Republican Party, period. The continuation of Trumpism, what I consider America's current fascist movement. And we have two U.S. congressional members who are now working hard to keep that torch of Trumpism alive in America. Representative Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
America.
Yes, and my story is going to focus on what they're currently doing. And the story comes from Yahoo News, written by David Knowles, posted on May 22nd, titled Reps Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene rally in Maricopa County to keep the big lie going. So in Mesa, Arizona, on Friday, May 21st, Representatives Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene brought their America First roadshow to Maricopa County, the place that has become the ground zero in the Republicans' effort to keep alive former President Donald Trump's false claims about his 2020 election loss. Quote, so let me just check and make sure we're sure with all of you. Who do you think won the election in Arizona on November 3rd? That's Greene asked the crowd of about 800 people gathering at a hotel ballroom in Mesa. The question prompted loud cheers and chants of Trump, 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 he's an asshole. No, they didn't say he was an asshole. But so Greene continued, quote, you know, that's how we feel in Georgia too. As a matter of fact, that's how Michigan feels, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I think that's how at least 74 plus million people feel. Honoring how people feel, it turns out, was the theme of the night. And no one's feelings factored in more importantly than those of the former president. Quote, we are here in solidarity with the Arizona election audit, Gaetz said of the latest review of the ballots ordered by the Arizona Senate Republicans, ignoring the fact that the two previous recounts concluded that Trump lost to President Biden in Maricopa County, fair and square. Whipping up hopes among audience members that the election still may have been incorrectly decided. Whipping up hopes among the audience members that the election still may not have been correctly decided. A perpetuation of Trump's false claims about election fraud and foes have dubbed the big lie. Gaetz also promised that, quote, Arizona will be the launch pad for other such election audits. To the joy, I guess, of many of those in attendance, of course, the suggestion could prove dangerous, though, as the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol, a non-insignificant portion of the audience supported T-shirts promptly featuring the letter Q, the menacing swords, as well as references to 1776, which are all symbols among those who believe that the violent revolution will soon be at hand to reinstall Trump in the White House. In another nod to Trump, Gaetz assured the crowd that the movement started by the, quote, the best president in my lifetime was still strong and would take down all Republicans who did not fully embrace it. He continued, quote, thousands of miles away in the swamp of Washington, the kind of hope that this was all over, that they hope that this was all over, that our populist list revolt would run away and no longer be part of our nation's identity, adding, oh, we are just starting. So yet the spectacle of Gaetz and Greene taking on the de facto role of color guard for the American First banner was, depending on one's political persuasion, either cause for celebration or proof that Trump's GOP is bent on self-destruction. Quote, I follow them because they are trying to help us with this administration is totally destroying our country right now. Nancy Winters, 50 of Gilbert, Arizona, told Yahoo News. Quote, I don't think anything is going right. I'm not happy with them ending all those people's jobs and the Keystone XL pipeline. I don't believe that this hack of the recent Colonial Pipeline that's causing higher taxes and running out of gas on the East Coast would have happened under Trump. All this is going on in Israel, but Trump, doesn't have any control. One of the first protesters to show up at the venue, Brad, a 50-year-old who declined to provide his last name, took a dimmer view. They're the richest of the right. I'm sorry, they're the rightest of the right, he said of Gates and Greene. The Republican Party is allowing itself to be defined by that the same way that the Republicans have attempted to define democracy by AOC, the squad, etc. I think the Republicans are walking themselves into it by defining themselves by the furthest of the right. On the night when Gates and Greene exalted in the adoration of their out-of-state supporters, both politicians find themselves under investigation. Gates is subject to a Justice Department inquiry into whether he had sex with a 17-year-old girl, transported her across state lines in violation of sex trafficking laws and other possible crimes. While his associate, Joel Greenberg, reaches a plea deal that week with federal prosecutors, the Florida congressman kept his remarks about Justice Department limited to his recent statements that the Arizona recount may not comply with federal law. Quote, one group that I'm inclined to stand up to, one group that I wouldn't mind having a little oversight over, is the Biden Justice Department, Gates said. Meanwhile, the Georgia congresswoman, who was stripped of her committee assignments in February for her violent rhetoric against Democrats and her promotion of QAnon conspiracy theories, has her own potential legal problems. She has drawn the attention of Georgia officials amid allegations that she broke the law by claiming homestead tax exemptions on 2 properties. In the House, calls for her for her to resign have grown with the discovery of videos showing her.
Word was too big.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez, who Greene repeatedly hammered throughout her remarks. Quote, she talks like a 14-year-old, Greene said of her interactions with AOC. She says, like, whatever, according to AOC, of lending support to terrorists in Gaza, as well as those Greene says participated in Black Lives Matter protests in the U.S. She reveled in portraying her as not smart or patriotic enough to hold elected office, and her audience ate it up.
Like, quote, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Quote, you shouldn't be a member of Congress if you're going to support terrorists abroad and at home, Greene said in one of her biggest applause lines of the night. All right, now, can you all believe what she said about AOC? I think that Marjorie needs to make sure she has her own house clean before she tries to clean someone else's house, or at least try to tell someone how to clean their house. She needs to kind of
clean my house.
Maybe needs to look in her own backyard a little bit when that last statement. The bombast from Gates and Greene was matched in speeches by Arizona Representative Paul Grosar and Andy Biggs, the Arizona Republican Party chairwoman Kelly Ward, all of whom let credence to the idea that Maricopa County audit was warranted. That the group seemed far removed from the Beltway Republicans who fear that drawing out challenges to the election will come back to haunt the party in the midterm. But judging from Friday's rally, with the second stop so far on what promises to be a growing national tour, the never say die strategy has also resonated with some voters. Between the two politicians at the top of the bill, Greene seemed to generate more excitement over the crowd, perhaps because Gates may yet be indicted for crimes that seem a lot more off-brand than allegedly cheating the government out of tax income. I love Marjorie, a woman wearing the American flag told me before checking her, told me, quote, wait, before checking herself, wait, you're with the media? When I showed her my press badge, she turned and walked off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heard that before.
You want to talk to those liberal press. In short, the event was a Trump rally, including swipes at the media covering it. The question remains, however, whether the former president will seek a 2024 nomination or be content to let the next generation of firebrands like Greene and Gates step into his shoes. Quote, the media like to act as though there's big civil war brewing between the Republican Party. It is going to be the establishment, or is it going to be the Trump populace, Gates said. Well, you know what? The Civil War is over. We won. The Donald Trump Republican Party. This is the Donald Trump Republican Party, he said. Never mind the warnings from Republicans on the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, who warned that the ongoing audit taking place at Phoenix's Veteran Memorial Coliseum, with its searches of non-existent watermarks and bamboo fibers that yet might suggest Chinese interference in the election, was turning the state into a laughingstock. He cast aside the polls that show that even a relative minor dissolution from the American First platform could spell another defeat for Republicans in the 2024. On Friday, Greene was all in, making clear she didn't care about unifying her party, let alone the nation. Quote, you know you're a Democrat if your name is Liz Cheney, she said. You know you might be a Democrat if your name is Adam Kinzinger. You know you might be a Democrat and have a serious problem in your primary election if you're one of the 10 Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump. Quote, I think they might be here to figure out how much support Trump will get, and they'll tell Trump about it, said Jim Shervat, 71 of Gilbert, Arizona, talking to Yahoo News. I think, quote, I think he's searching out to see how many people are interested in voting for him. It is also possible that Gates and Greene were scouting on their own behalf. Quote, this is a crowd that I don't think anyone not named Donald Trump running for president in 2024 could get, Gates boasted at one point. Either way, the impressive showing made clear that there's a hunger among many Republicans for the agenda Trump popularized. Reading their audience, the two headliners drilled down and vented over illegal immigration at the southern border, the conflict between the Israel and the Palestinians, the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, COVID restrictions, and Dr. Anthony Fauci and members of their own party. For most Democrats and a notable minority of Republicans, Gates and Greene are simply perpetuating the insurrection that won't quite die, pushing the discredited conspiracy theories about voter fraud, defending those who violently attacked the Capitol, and exulting in the glory of the man behind it all.
God.
Yeah.
To where we stop. Right?
Okay. So anyway, so so we keep wanting some signs. I keep looking for some signs in the Republican members of Congress, some sanity from the Republican members. I just can't believe they continue to stay silent against and even appear to support Trumpism, the new American fascism. What do you guys think?
It's terrifying that people are listening to her. She's such a nut. She's a crazy person.
Yeah, I mean, it
just based on her support of QAnon and all the crazy conspiracy theories. I mean, like, she's all in.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
She is.
Well,
all
she has
in
nothing
with
else to do because she's kicked out of all her committees.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's giving herself a job. Trumpism.
I just still can't believe that they're like fighting this election thing. Like, what? I mean, I honestly, I don't have an issue with investigating election fraud. I don't really have, I mean, the fact that there's been absolutely no evidence ever for anything, that just stop. You know, like it's over. Like I don't understand how they're continuing this nonsense. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And people are still listening to it and still following it. It just, I just don't understand. Like Tracy's right. She's a nut job. I have no idea why people listen to her. But I mean, look, Trump is our president. So I don't know.
Drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's easier to accept that something went wrong than believe you got defeated, I suppose. But you know, this has gone way beyond any rationality. When every court case but one went against Trump, and it was, I think it was 60-1 or close to that anyway. And that still isn't good enough. And these are Trump appointed judges that made these decisions, the majority of them. So I don't, you know, it's just unfathomable to me how this continues. But hopefully it will end with with well, I don't know how it's going to end.
Well,
Yeah, I guess that's the main problem, that if there's something that keeps me awake at night, I suppose that would be it. Wondering exactly how this is going to end. Yeah. So.
Or when is it going to end?
Right.
It never ends. What if it never ever ends?
Yeah. Well, it's and.
What if our great grandchildren are still dealing with this?
Well, at least it won't be with Trump being alive, but.
Dead, but they'll still be, insisting that he's our president.
Here's the thing, I still think that the number of votes that Trump received in the election is probably not because of necessarily his policies or him. I think it's because of the R.
Sure.
And so the Trump loyalists, I think, is a much smaller fraction than your normal Republican. But it's the fact is that you just don't see those sane Republicans coming out against it. Is the bad part?
Yeah, I mean they're afraid to get primaried.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tim, thanks so much for that story, and we will be right back with our crazy story of the week.
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fool's gold. Yes, I did.
And we're back with our crazy story of the week. Believe it or not, Lou Dobbs used to be a reasonable reporter.
What? Are you sure?
I know it's hard to imagine that compared to where he is now.
Yeah.
But Lou Dobbs, when he worked for CNN, used to MC a show called Moneyline. Now, the show was dedicated to financial news and was usually profoundly serious. However, one night they closed the show by talking about the psychic network.
Why wouldn't you?
Which was a bill by the minute 900 number, quote unquote, service. Lou Dobbs reported that the Psychic Network had declared bankruptcy. If only they could have seen it coming. now even though psychics have been debunked repeatedly, they keep popping up. Psychics are the subject of our crazy story this week, and Tracy has it. So Tracy, what is going on in the world of parapsychology, to quote Dr. Venkman?
Sure. This story came from Raw Story, authored by Brad Reed, titled, "This Trump-aligned anti-trafficking group relies on psychics to locate kidnapped children." Kidnapped children.
Kidnapped.
With quotes, because, who knows. The anti-human trafficking group with ties to former President Donald Trump tries to track down purportedly kidnapped children across the world using the powers of a self-proclaimed psychic. In an interview on the Daily Beast's latest Fever Dreams podcast, Vice News reporter Anna Merlin said that Operation Underground Railroad, whose founder Tim Ballard was appointed to a Trump administration anti-trafficking panel, had relied on a psychic's tip before conducting a failed raid in Haiti. Don't laugh at it. Never mind. The validity of that. They have defended the use of psychics and made it sound like something that law enforcement does all the time. They might do, but that doesn't make it a good idea, Merlin explained. Merlin also noted that Ballard has succeeded in making his operation appear more legitimate than it is by scoring endorsements from celebrities such as baseball player Bryce Harper, conservative talk show host Glenn Beck, and Passion of the Christ star Jim something. Yeah, that's how I say it. Who has been spouting QAnon-style conspiracy theories about children being harvested for their adrenochrome. Jim Caviezel immediately started talking about the adrenochroming of children and stated outright that children were being tortured and murdered for their anybody know how to say that? Adrenochrome by elites or other evildoers, Merlin said. He also sort of indicated that Ballard had been on the one who told him about these things. I think that was some sort of typo. That's the end of that story, but I think psychics are real.
Are you sure you're not confusing psychos with psychics? Because psychos are real. There are psychos.
I think psychos are real.
Oh.
Yeah. No psychos, but psychics.
Oh,
We should have run that clip from the Ghostbusters with it, because that is so hilarious. And just what are you a doctor of, Mr. Venkman? Well, I hold PhDs in psychology and parapsychology. No, it's a lot of money has been made, and we still. What's the latest one? Oh, the California psychics. Right, the California psychics are now the ones that advertise all the time on TV. And if you ever watch The Amazing Randy and his interview with so-called psychics, what he refused to do was give them the cues that they always play upon, to try to continue their story.
Oh,
We're ready to believe you.
Not until you eat all your dinner.
Yeah. You will wake up in the morning, hopefully.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Wait a minute. I'm seeing it now.
Wasn't
The sun will rise
Rise.
in the east. Yes.
what in the 80s and maybe 90s, wasn't there was the I think, was she like from Jamaica or whatever, but advertised on TV?
Oh,
Or
there's
some
been,
show. I
yeah,
mean, there's all
been,
countless.
yeah, there's been a bunch
The
of
psychic,
them.
like you say, the psychic hotline.
Yep,
There's all,
yep.
yeah.
No, but
Oh, yeah. What were you doing up at 3 a.m?
The psychic told me to.
yeah. We're getting a psychic
Oh,
reading.
to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, no, it really is incredible. I mean, and I'm trying to remember the person's name, but where this really kind of gained a degree of a foothold with society was this one person claimed to be a psychic who predicted Kennedy's assassination, and I'm trying to remember her name.
Right? Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, okay. Well, anyway, people gave that credibility that she really did predict it. Well, crimey, the intelligence agencies were all saying that at that time. So all she did was, make a public statement about it. That look out, President Kennedy, and somehow that was interpreted as being a prediction that he was going to be assassinated. But I really think that's kind of when this all started, back in the early '60s. So
Are you guys telling me that psychics aren't real?
No, right?
Yes,
Right?
I think I just wasted 99 cents a minute. I'm just saying.
well, yep, yeah.
That's good.
Well, remember the first 10 minutes can be free. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's when you're on hold, right?
that's when you're listening to the elevator music.
Those things are crazy. The craziest part about the whole idea of psychics is that people like use them to solve crimes and and it's like, how do you do that? How do you believe that?
Desperate.
I just don't understand.
Extremely desperate if you're calling in psychics to help you solve.
Well, some people just have more intuition than others, right, Abby?
Yeah, for sure. Like
That's why I don't believe in psychics.
yeah. I have a good eye for idiots too. I'm pretty good at that.
You are. You're psychic then.
Yeah, they usually have a Trump sign in their yard still.
That's too easy. That's too easy. That's too easy.
Still flying Trump 2020 flags.
Yeah.
Yep, Trump 2020.
Make America great red hat.
Yeah, I have intuition.
Yes.
You guys now give me $5.
Women's intuition.
Oh yeah, that too, of course. All women have that, right, Tracy?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was definitely a good crazy story to wrap up our 1-year anniversary show. So
You can get this
awesome.
posted by midnight.
All right, so that will wrap us up for this week. If you've enjoyed our program, please pass the word to your friends and associates, believers and non-believers alike. Again, just a reminder that you are welcome to post questions and comments on our Facebook page. Remember, there is an enormous difference between having good reasons for one accepts to be true and having bad ones. Incidentally, this is the only distinction one needs to become a strict atheist. This has been Dr. Brad for Abby, Tracy, and Tim saying so long.